Hi guys, in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to use page view in your iPhone application. So open up Xcode, create a new Xcode project, and let's create an empty application today. And I'm going to call it page view tutorial. And I'm not going to use core data, I'm only going to use automatic reference counting and select iPhone. Alright, and then create our project, and from there I'm gonna start by creating a content view controller. So do that by going to File, New, File, and then our content view controller is gonna be a subclass of UI view controller. So I'm gonna call it content view controller, and make sure to click this with zip for user interface, and make sure the target is selected and create it. We drag this up. Alright, and for our zip file, all we're gonna need is two labels. So in this tutorial I'm just gonna show you how to do the paging, where you can turn the page and it makes it look like a book with a curl. So I'll just have two labels. One label for the title, the other one will be for the, let's say, text. This one is text and this one will be title. Let me make my title a little bit bigger. There, so we can distinguish that that's the title, and I'll change my background color to orange. Alright, and from there I'm just gonna make my connection in my content view controller. So control click and drag this onto here. I'm gonna call this one title string, and this one, the text, I'm gonna call it text string, and type will be UI label, storage will be weak. And for the content view controller header file, I'm gonna have two more properties. Property strong non-atomic, and type will be ID, and I'm gonna call it data object 1. And again, at property strong non-atomic, type will be ID, data object 2. Alright, so those are 4 properties for our content view controller. And for our content view controller implementation file, the .m, we're not gonna do that much. I'm only gonna do one thing. So eventually we're gonna need this, so I'll do it right now. So I'm gonna set my self.title string. I'm gonna set whatever the title string is from my data object 1. So set text self.data object 1 self.text string set text self.data object 2. Alright, so that's all we need for our content view controller. So basically what's gonna happen is I'm gonna create another class called page app view controller, and it's gonna set something here, the data object, and it's gonna set the label text that we have in our zip file to show you the title and the text, and then I'm going to show you that you can flip these things. So I did this ahead of time before we create our page app view controller. So now we'll move on to creating our page app view controller by going File, New, File, and I'm gonna choose an Objective-C class, and again it will be a subclass of UI view controller, and I'm gonna call this one page app view controller, and then I'll create xib with zip for user interface, and then create our class. Alright, so here's our 3 files: page app view controller, page app view controller.m, and page app view controller zip file. So for our zip file, we're not going to do anything here, so we'll just move on to the header file. So for the header file, what we're going to have is we're going to have 3 properties here. We're going to have non-atomic and strong, and the first one will be a UIPageView controller, and I'm going to call this PageView controller. And the other 2 properties will be non-atomic and strong. It will be a NS mutable array. The first one will be for the title, array of titles that we're gonna have, and the second one is gonna be non-atomic strong also, and it's also gonna be NS mutable array. This one will be for the chapter text. Alright, so here, the chapter title and chapter text. So these will be the array that holds the titles and the text. Alright, so that's all we need for actually we need one more thing. We need to declare the UIPageView controller data source. We don't need the delegate methods for this tutorial, so I only need the PageView controller data source method for this one. And in our PageView controller implementation file, in view.did_load, I'm going to initialize my array of titles and text that we have here. So I'm gonna say self.chapterTitle equals NS mutable array alloc init, and then from there I'm gonna do a for statement. So I'm gonna add 10 chapters in here for int I equals 0, I less than 10, increment I, and then self.chapterTitle add object, and the object will be NS string with format, and it's gonna be, I'm just gonna call it chapter and the chapter number, which is I. Alright, so then that's our setting our chapter title array. Alright, and here I'm gonna also set the chapter text array. Self.chapterText equals NS mutable array alloc init, and then again I'm gonna do a for loop for int I equals 0. Let's say we also have 10. So we'll do I less than 10, I increment, and then we'll do the same thing, self.chapterText set add object. The object will be NS string with format, and it's gonna say this is text for chapter I. Alright, okay, so let's just leave it like that. So this is setting our title array, and this is our setting our text array for each of the chapters. Alright, and then from there we can move on to create a NS dictionary. I'm gonna call this option equals NS dictionary with object, dictionary with object, and the object would be ns number with integer, and this will be UI page view controller spine location min. Let's look for that. UI page view controller spine location min for key, and the key will be UI page view controller option spine location key. Option spine location key. So that's that. And we're gonna do self dot page view controller equals UI page view controller. UI page view controller alloc init with transition style, and then the transition style will be UI page view controller transition style. We'll do a curl for this one. Alright, transition style curl, and from there oh, we're not done yet. Let's see. Navigation orientation will be UI page view controller navigation orientation horizontal option will be the option that we just created. And then from there we do self dot page view controller set data source to self. And then here now we need to do one more thing. I'm gonna import my content view controller that we have created here. So I'm gonna import that so we can use it. So before we do that, let me define another helper method here. I'm gonna call this one view. I'm gonna call this one view controller at index. Okay. So it's gonna return a content view controller. Well, a pointer to a content view controller. So I'm gonna call it view controller at index NSU integer index. Alright, so it's gonna, the argument that it's gonna take is a NSU integer, and it's gonna return a content view controller. So we're gonna check if the index that's being passed in is greater than self dot chapter title dot count -1. So we're gonna check for that, and if that's the case, then we return nil. Otherwise, if not, then we can set our content view controller, set a pointer to that, we'll call it CVC equals content view controller alloc init, and I'm gonna say content view CVC set data object 1. The data object 1 I'm gonna set is self dot chapter title object at index, and the index will be index that we've just passed in. And also we need to set the data object 2, which is the text. So say self dot chapter text object at index, and again set the object at index. Alright, and at the end we're just gonna return our content view controller, our CVC that we've called it. Alright, now that we've defined this this helper method, we can go back to our view did load, and here I'm gonna say content view controller initial VC self view controller at index 0. So we're calling this method here, we're passing it the index 0. So that's gonna be our first page that we see, which is chapter 1, and the text will be the text. Actually, it'll be chapter 0. And then from there we're gonna do ns array. I'm gonna call this view controllers equals ns array with object, and the object will be initial VC. And then we'll do self page view controller set view controllers, and our view controllers will be view controllers that we've just created here. And for the direction, let's do UIPageView controller navigation direction forward, animation yes, completion no. And then from there we'll do self.pageViewController dot view, not view controller dot view. Let's set the frame to be self.view.bounds, and from there we'll do self add child view controller self.pageViewController, and self.view add subview, and the subview that we're going to add is the page view controller. So do self.pageViewController.view. Alright, and then do self.pageViewController did move to parent view controller, and that would be self. Alright, so that's that, and we need to do the method, the data source method that we need. But before we do that, I think I am gonna define I think I'm gonna do one more helper method before that. So do NSU integer index of view controller. So this one's gonna return the index, so that when I actually define my data source method, this method is gonna help return the index of the view controller that I pass in. So do an index of view controller. So the argument is going to be a pointer to a content view controller. I'm going to call it view controller. Then do return self.chapter title index of object, and the object will be view controller, this right here, view controller.data object 1. Alright, so that's going to return the index of whatever the view controller was passed in. So if the first view controller was passed in, it's going to return a 0. And if it's the second one, it's going to return a 1, and so on. And now we can define our data source method, which is we do these two, the before and after. So let's do the before first. Before pretty much means flipping it backwards. So here, like flipping the page backwards. So when we have a view controller here, like a content view controller, and we flip it backwards, which is like flipping it to the right, so it won't go back. So we're gonna define that method like this. So we're gonna check if the index that's being passed in, oops, let me delete that. If index is equal to 0, oh no, we need to define the index first. So we do NSU integer index equals self index of view controller, the method that we've just created, and then pass it the pass it the view controller that we have here. So we gotta cast it to content view controller and view controller. Alright, so this view controller is being passed in from the data source method. So we cast it to content view controller. And then we pass that on to our index of view controller method that we've just defined here. And with this method, it's going to return the index of this original view controller that's being passed. So that's the NSU integer is being set here in this index. And then so here we check if the index is already equals to 0. That means it's already the first page. So when in this method is before, so when it turns to the left, it won't turn. So we check that, or we also check for if index equals ns not found. So if we do that, then we return nil because we're not gonna change the page. Otherwise, we're gonna decrement the index, and we're going to return self view controller at index and index. So we either return nil or we return the view controller at this index right here, which is the page that's going to show you whatever chapter and title it's going to be. And here's one more. We'll do page view controller, and this one will be view controller after view controller. So this one is flipping it forward. So again, we do a similar check, but this time we just do if index, this thing keeps popping up, if index equals ns not found, then again we need to do the same check here. So NSU integer index equals self index of view controller, and again we can cast it to content view controller and we pass it to that. It returns an index for us, and we do a check on the index, and if that check holds, then we return nil. That means we've reached the end of our all our chapters and text. Otherwise, we increment the index, and then we do then we return self view controller at index. Okay, and I think that should be it. And since we started with the empty application, we need to set our app delegate. So we gotta do import in the page view controller, not page view controller, page app view controller.h, and in our did finish launching with option, do page app view controller.h pavc equals page app view controller alloc init, and then we have to set the root view controller to be our page app view controller. So do self window set root view controller pavc, and let's run our application, and that should work. If not, then we'll fix it. Alright, this is text for chapter. Okay, so something's not right, so let's check these things. Data object 1, data object 2, title string, text string. Okay, so the content view controller looks okay. Data object 1 gets the title string, data object 2 gets the text string. Our page app view controller, set data object here, set data object 2, set data object 2, content view controller. Alright, I wonder if that fixed it. Let me try it again. Chapter 0. Alright, so it looks like that fixed it. Made a mistake here in our view controller at index. I added the chapter text to data object 1, so it changed whatever the title was at the time to my chapter text. So there, that when I changed it back to data object 2, that added the chapter text to the bottom right here, and the title text stays visible right here. So let's look at it. So when we grab it, it does a little curl, and then it does a little curl, and then you can see here in the back it has a chapter 0, chapter 1 kind of on the back page. So this makes it kind of look like a book. You can turn it down, you can turn it up, so you can turn it to the right to get the next chapters, or you can turn it to the left and then you get to the previous chapters. And again, when we try to turn left on chapter 0, it doesn't go anymore because of this check right here that we check for index is 0. And again, when we keep on turning, it should stop at 9 because we have declared 10 chapters. So there, it stopped at 9 and it won't go anymore to the right. Alright, so this is a tutorial on page views. So hopefully you've learned something new, and I'll see you next time in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching. Bye.